Hello and welcome to The Society with Barrister Fatma Shaheen at PTP World. Now, they say that style is a way in which you can communicate with others without having to speak. When we talk of fashion, we understand the fact that fashion and culture, they go hand in hand. We also understand the fact that fashion and society go hand in hand because the societal norms of any society have a heavy influence what the fashion of that society is. What has influenced our sense of fashion? What has impacted our fashion trends, be it the social media, be it global trends, or more recently, the COVID-19 pandemic? This is exactly what we'll be talking about in our today's show. We'll be deliberating upon the link between fashion and society as it does stand today. And we'll also be talking about the fact that why is it so necessary for fashion designers to give back to the society in whatever way they can. This and much more to follow, and to do that, let me introduce you to my today's panel. My first panelist for the show today is Rana Noman, who is a fashion designer. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. And my second panelist for the show today is Miss Hajra Hayat, who's again a fashion designer. Assalamu alaikum ji, and welcome to the show.
Assalam. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. And my third panelist for the show today is Noman Zakir, who is also a fashion designer. Assalamu alaikum, Noman, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Most welcome. Sir, I would like to start the show with you. You know, when we talk about fashion, we understand the fact that, fashion is a very effective communication tool. And it is that one way in which you can express yourself. But we must also not ignore the fact that a lot of times we see young adults, teenagers, following fashion trends very obsessively, which is of course not good for them. So how can you find the right balance between, staying abreast with all the latest fashion developments, but still not ensuring that, your life is all about fashion at the end of the day?
Well, with the new rage of social media, we know that everybody's already in it.
Right.
The adults or your new generation's already sucked into it. And it's very difficult now. But the balance has to come from your personal education, your household, how you're brought up in the house. And yes, it's very, very important to keep up with the latest trends and how the fashion is around you. But I guess it's
something which has to come from within.
Yes.
And I think to some extent, sir, because you're a parent yourself, I think the responsibility also lies on the parents too.
Absolutely. Like I said, it has to come from the house as well.
Right.
And the education, which obviously one gets from your parents.
Exactly. And I think something which I earlier mentioned during the introduction of my show, that when we talk about fashion and how the trends have evolved over a period of years, we see a series of factors influencing the same. But then we should also, see this debate in the context of culture, how fashion impacts culture, or vice versa. And this is something not true for Pakistan, it's true for any other country.
Yeah.
So how reflective do you feel is the Pakistani fashion industry today, especially when it comes to depiction of our Pakistani culture?
I think we are absolutely depicting our culture, because see, if I look at from my angle, which is bridal couture and formal. So bridal couture, the collection that we just recently made is all about tradition, and we revived the traditional craft. We worked on that in our collection called Agra. And if I look at from the textile point of view, so even the textile, I mean, look at the beautiful shoots that they get done. And I'm in awe of these songs that they put at the back. These are like such traditional, cultural, hamare purane, all of these old folk songs. So I think fashion right now, and the community that's producing fashion, we're pretty much taking our tradition from the cuts to the fabric, and even to the how we present it. And we're putting up, I think we're doing a fabulously good job. The generation coming behind us as well, like, it's one generation that's us, who literally put up the business out there in form of commercial markets, in form of really, sitting out there and letting the people come to us. And then there's a generation that's following us, and even if they come back from after studying from abroad or wherever, they're literally looking back into their traditions and cultures and reviving it. So I don't think we are really off.
And I think it's also unfair, this is something I usually come across, of course not being from the fashion industry like the three of you are, that it's difficult to, judge then too, because different generations also have different fashion standards. What may be fashionable today for me might not be so fashionable for my parents too.
Absolutely.
So I'll come to you, who's the youngest panelist on the show today. What factors do you feel have influenced the fashion trends as they, stand, be it in case of men or women, because I understand that you're catering to both?
Yeah. So I think that primarily in today's time, as Rana Sahab has very rightly pointed out, that it's a lot more different with regards to the access of social media and everyone having their phones. So I think that at this time we have less dictation than what the generic market itself and the social media has as dictation. However, one thing that is brilliant in today's time, it's that whatever our visions are, they're a lot more easier to kind of bring about into the market. So I think that traditionally it was, you know, there's a lot more massive marketing and a massive lengthier process that's required. Today it's that we make a nice garment, we shoot it, and it's up on social media and we boost the ad.
And you market it very intelligently too, because there's so much competition. I think from the contrary, there are so many other things that you need to look into as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that, but alongside that, conveying your message as a designer, as a conceptual thing, it's a lot more easier in today's time, because the access to reach a customer is a lot more easier as well.
Right. But how do you see the men's fashion wear, you know, evolving? Because I do understand that you are catering to different classes of men. Then you've also been catering to younger men. So how do you compare? How have the trends changed?
I think that today men are a lot more well versed with what they want to wear and what they don't want to wear compared to before. And also I do think that men have started to become a lot more finicky than what they used to be. So for instance, today people are more you know, well addressed with regards to what a nice tailored Italian suit is compared to a traditional suit. So I think that that does help us, and it does create more demand for a brand like us.
Right. And coming to you, sir, you wanted to add something to that?
Because of, obviously because of social media and everything, there's a lot of more awareness.
Right.
But if you look at things like our parents back in the 70s or the 60s, they were very trendy. Their clothes used to be very, very trendy. Which was so fashionable.
And I remember that's very rightly put, because when I was researching for the show, I came across the fact that in the 90s, 70s, the trend of the ripped jeans started back then. And it was actually a momentum. It was the sign of showing that they're angry with the society.
Elvis time.
Exactly. Back in the 1970s.
Back in the 70s, everybody used to dress up. Like, I remember, my father's pictures were all about bell bottoms and long hair and sideburns and big, huge buckles. And
working men who used to go to work, they were the ones who actually used to wear jeans back then. So we also have seen history and shown us that, you know, fashion can be used as a medium to influence politics, also as a medium to influence society and change. In Pakistan, do we see that thing? Because this is something that, you know, that is coming from the West.
But you know that this is a culture which also started off in the subcontinent, the hippie culture. So, and Vivienne Westwood is the one who back in the 60s started the flower power, and you know, there was a lot going on, and which started from around here. And a lot of foreigners started coming to the subcontinent.
I'll add to Rana's aspect here, and I think in Pakistan, if you what was the last election was all about fashion power at the elections.
I
mean, like, I'm not going to be naming any party here, but you know, if there was a prevalent party, there were kurtas being made, there were scarves being made.
I think it was primarily because there were more women voters out there.
No, but then that's what it is.
And
people want to see their leaders to be well dressed, a good personality, but that's how it is, that you want to see.
If there is idealism, it will definitely affect fashion.
But coming to you, Haja, I think we should also, you know, consider this in a more women-centric narrative, since you are the only woman here on the panel today. There are a lot of times, unfortunately, you know, we've seen that when women have been subjected to crimes of violence more particularly, it has one way or the other been associated by their, you know, style choices, by the way they dress up, saying that, you know, this happened because they dressed up in a certain way, of course. So do you not think that fashion can and should positively influence the society? It should at the same time not be a testimony to a woman's character.
Listen, I think when you say something like that, you're basically hardcore targeting the mindset rather than the clothes. So I think we're sitting here in a place, in a country right now where we are literally still coming and evolving off. Like, if you look at social media, if a woman, a TV actor, if she has a personal life, you know, if she has a certain dress or if she has a certain lifestyle, the immediate attack on character, it is something that our culture and our society, basically, we take, you know, we become the moral police immediately. That itself is it's a mindset. We are an agriculturist country. We come from the farmers' clans. If you go back into that mind frame and mindset, there is this oppression on women still. So when we're speaking in English or we're speaking in a language, I hope that we can make an impact still.
I think another narrative on this is, of course, moral policing stays there. And then we've recently also seen that this is something which is, coming from the fashion industry as well, because you might remember that in the awards show which took place some time back, women were being trolled, they were being criticized on the kind of fashion choices that they had. So I think to get the basics right, we need to understand as a nation that fashion is just not about being bold or edgy. You can be simple, you can be classy.
First of all, there are dresses that are traditional to the subcontinent. If you can carry them out with class at your own events, I think nothing like it.
Right.
But then if you're trying to make a statement and if you're doing it in a very classy, subtle way, and the dress is literally part of the personality of the lady who's wearing it, I don't think it really, it doesn't create that much of a havoc. What ends up happening in that, since that particular topic that you have, sort of brought up on the, if it's an event or an award show, sometimes
You're
we
right,
take fashion
but
and
you know
we just
what?
make a
But
mess
there's
out
a
of it.
mixed opinion on
There's a
that.
mixed opinion, but the thing is that now with the TV channels and everything, they are also trying, the media is trying to cater to the international market as well. So when you do that, you don't end up being a cultural show.
Yeah.
You end up being an international show.
You're all
and
over
then
the
that's what
world.
they're trying to do.
Yeah, you're
but,
all over the world.
I still feel that, yes, you're right. Your elegant traditional attire should be incorporated.
Right, so your point is noted. But coming to you, would you want to add something to that?
So for us, it's actually a little different. For us, it's not about sticking to what our Pakistani roots are alone. For us, it's more about a global trend. So for example, me, myself, I graduated finally from Institut Francis de la Mode. And we do sell our suits all over. We've done trunk shows in Milan, everywhere around the world. So for us, it's a lot about what we innovate within that, and also we do have a distinctive style. We do have a distinctive style statement.
Right.
However, we do keep in mind what would be globally demanded and what would be a global culture. So I think that is a little different for our case.
Right.
And I do believe that for us as a Pakistani-based fashion designer, I would love to see us being more known in a global strata, not alone with our Eastern clothes, but also with our Western clothes, like other people do globally compete.
And I think in that way, we must also focus on the Eastern wear particularly, because that is something which is peculiar to our identity, and it helps us express our identity better. But moving on, as somebody who caters to both men's wear as well as women's wear, and I understand that you're quite scattered in your women's wear collection
yes,
too.
yes.
You have Western wear, you have
And
Eastern
Eastern
wear
wear,
too,
yes,
basically.
yes.
So what are the most pressing concerns that you come across, especially when it comes to women, like those who want to get married especially?
So when people are getting married, just like my previous collection, which we done in BCW, was Bachpan Ka Khab. So in
Right.
Pakistan, in Asia, our weddings are like everything. People spend their life's earnings on it, which kind of benefits us all. But I think that's something which is very pressing for us as well as a responsibility, because we have to deliver something which is beyond what sometimes a client can even envision. So I think that adds a lot of pressure to us. But overall, I think it's a beautiful experience as well, because you're kind of dressing someone up for the most important event of their life.
Right.
And that does give us a lot of validation as designers
I
as
think
well.
I 100% agree with you. Like when I started off like good 25 years back, I used, and I still say this till date, and I'm sure Rana will also agree, that it's like, when we're delivering a bridal dress, we're delivering a child. There's a whole families waiting for the dress to come out, and then everybody has an opinion, and the khala and the puppo and everybody will have an opinion, and us, like any one of us who deals one-on-one, we're like standing there like, like
The creator.
the creator waiting to either get
No, but then
ambushed
that
or
is
either
my
get
reason
appreciated.
more, why fashion relates, it's so deeply embedded into the society, because I think this is again something which is
And
very
he's so
particular to
right.
our
It's such a big
Pakistani
event.
culture,
It's
to
such
the
a
South
big
Asian
event.
culture. But sir, coming to you, I think a very relevant point which we must draw from you is the fact that, you've had that international experience of showcasing in different Western jurisdictions too, be it UK, US. So how do you compare the audience there to what it is here?
The people who are not in the country, they're thriving for, the designers to come abroad and, showcase. And it's easier for people who are not here. And when we take the collections there, they're actually serious buyers. They're more happy when you visit, and then they end up coming to you and buying more. And being there, out of Pakistan, they're more professionals and they're more keen about the clothes. And it works very well for us, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then your clients are just not Pakistanis or Desis.
No, 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 no,
Of
not
course,
at
they're
all.
foreigners, white people
Not
as
at
well.
all.
Yeah.
So I was in, when I started my brand, 12 years ago, I started with Dubai and then I went to UK. And in Dubai, my clientele, when I started off, they were all Arabs. And the Pakistanis, well, the Pakistanis there, Dubai is very close to Pakistan. So it's just, you know, a call to the mother and like, please send me this from
Yes,
here.
everything is so
it's-
interconnected now.
Yes, so it's easier. But then when we started stocking in England, in London, we were stocking, we were catering to a whole different market altogether. And most of my clientele from Dubai and England has been royalties all over, dignitaries, diplomats, and
Which is amazing, yeah.
which is amazing. And you, it's so amazing when you cater to such people. And with my style of work, they just end up and they can connect to it, which is amazing.
And we all understand you've been very, passionate about your work, all your meticulous line, very
Yeah.
intricately put together that way too. And I think it also gives you more incentive perhaps to work harder that
Absolutely
way.
it
Since
does.
you're not only catering to, one nation,
Yes,
you're in a way representing Pakistan abroad too.
And when you're not in the country, you really don't want to cater to just the Pakistanis.
Of course.
You want to cater to a wider, and it really, really works.
I remember once in the US, I was doing this show for this federation that had invited me. I've also done Dubai Fashion Week and I've done different shows abroad. So the experience that I had from Dubai was lukewarm from my own personal
Yeah.
experience to when I went to the US and he's saying that when the show got finished, so not only that it's a great response from the audience, it's also the models who were walking. Some of them were foreigners, and they were white-skinned people.
True.
So they ended up coming to the exhibition later, and some of their mother, and one of this lady and her mother was like, the dress my daughter wore while she was walking the ramp, I want that Desi dress, Pakistani dress for her. So it's one of those things that he said that it's always nice to sell something to someone from a different
And
culture.
then get that recognition, especially abroad that way. But Haja, I think we must also talk about the COVID-19 angle, because we understand that everything has changed and we have to keep this discussion relevant, of course, in the times that we are living in. So COVID-19, how do you see it for Pakistan, especially the Pakistani fashion industry? Has it brought more opportunities? Has it brought more challenges?
I think for the fashion industry, definitely more challenges to begin with, because there are businesses that benefited from like any adversity and any challenge that comes through in the society, wherever in the world. Some businesses will benefit and some will suffer. We are all a luxury-based product making, and when it comes to luxury and there is a war going on to do basics. Obviously, the basics has to be taken care of first. So last 2 years, or maybe I'll put it like this, as we're entering, even post-COVID, I would say, yes, definitely, it's the quantity of events when they lessen down. Like if 3 of us are sitting here and there are 6 people getting married right here, right now, it's that, we'll end up having a different share of the community coming to
And
us.
it's just not,
shaken
designers
all.
like yourself, so many other people who are related to you, like
Absolutely.
the florists,
florists,
the caterers, the
food
jewelry
people.
people.
Your weaver, your fabric maker.
Everybody, exactly.
Your-
From the
Of
ground
course.
level to the highest,
Everybody is
everything.
affected.
Photographers,
Everybody is
Makeup
affected.
people who do lights and everything. So the whole entire, like anywhere else in the world, I think
Well,
the fashion industry.
we are like mainstream people, right?
Right.
But what about all the karigars? What about the
Yes.
labor?
We had to
what
end
about
up,
them?
I'm sure all
I mean,
of
there
them
was-
have the
we
same
had to
experience. We had to
literally-
pay people.
Yeah.
The whole year of that first half of COVID, I had
We had to pay out of our
pay out
pockets.
of our pockets because we had to keep our team together.
No,
Where-
but you
where
people
would
could
we
do it
go?
because
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, you people are somewhere. You could afford to do that. But what about young people out there? I was reading this report, which said that World Trade Organization has been very active throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, ensuring that the relationship between, the business owners and the employees is regulated. And of course, the general well-being is taken care of. But how do you see that emancipating in Pakistan, especially with regards to the fashion industry?
So I think that obviously it's obviously a lot less in Pakistan, but I would say this, that for me, luckily, COVID was if not fully, locally in Pakistan, I had a big hit, and obviously, like everyone else said.
Of course.
But for me, it was also a good wake-up call, and we actually grew our digital front, and we launched in 13 countries just due to COVID, which I never would have done
so
before.
So that's another way to look at it.
Yeah.
It was a blessing in disguise for
so
you.
I think we were pushed in the backside. You know, today's time is not only about our physical retail; it's also about our digital retail. And I remember we developed an entire new storefront. We got different domains for different countries, and we ended up doing that. And I was much to my surprise, because before originally you're competing with people who are physically present globally, but now you're literally competing with them digitally.
Right.
So it's a lot more easier that way to sell a suit that is digital, as well as another brand that's selling a suit digitally.
But then, Noman, again, if you consider this from the common man perspective, correct me if I'm wrong, for somebody who wants to open up maybe, who doesn't have the right sources, who doesn't have access to digital, resources, that might be difficult. And this is something which we see in the rest of the society too, because when you talk about education as well, not everybody could switch to online education system. So I think that social injustice, element, that would in that way remain. But of course, having said that, I think it would be dictated by every fashion designer's particular circumstances.
But it also depends on the product.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
For the
for sure.
digital marketing.
Yeah.
It also depends. Like for us, like couture, and it doesn't work.
Yes,
Any one of us was a textile giant sitting, we would be like, we were like, this was the best time ever.
Right.
Because
that was one industry that was not hit
entire
yet.
community had nothing else to do but buy kurtas.
Right.
Because they would be like going online, and I think, I mean, not to name any brand, but some of the brands literally had nothing happening at their stores, but they were killing it online.
Yeah, for sure,
because it's
sure.
all
I've
about
started
retail.
buying things online.
Right. I think
All
it is
of
But like
us.
minor things.
But
But sir, I think
nuts
from the
on
fashion
online.
designers to the masses to the brides, everybody's shopping trends have completely changed
Like
now.
I buy my slippers online, I
basically.
buy my
Nice.
t-shirts
Everybody
online.
needs
Nice,
casuals.
nice.
Like,
Yeah.
so I think the retail
your
market
casual
really
I
wear
think
you
the
end up
whole
buying
trend is
online.
now more casual, more loungewear,
Yes.
more basically.
Bilkul.
But then we're
it's
talking about
it's
another
less
genre.
formal
That's
now,
another
even for
genre.
men.
But I
sure,
think
for
this is
sure.
going to fade out in the next 2-3 years, because after post-pandemic, you would want to go out and
Yeah,
shop.
dress up.
Post-pandemic, so I don't know when that
When
end
that
will be.
comes.
I'm
Well.
hoping it will come soon. But
Yeah.
how do you see the expectations of the consumers, their attitudes changing per se? Like, of course, I understand from the three of you that for fashion designers, it has been, difficult or easy, respectively, as you all put it. But what about the expectations of the consumer out there?
So I was in England last month, and I didn't feel like buying anything. With the roads and everything. So I'm now talking about
And a
me
personal
being a
experience,
consumer.
Yeah.
So right now we're still in that depression time.
It has impacted
It
us
has impacted
quite
us
a bit.
a lot.
And it's not only
So
on an
it's-
emotional
and
level, but also
because
financial.
I did not
Yeah.
like on the streets of London. There were nobody had a handbag in their like nobody had a shopping bag in their hand. People weren't buying. So there were people. It wasn't crowded, but it was a ghost. On weekdays, it used to look like a ghost town. And so it's really hit us.
And I think in this regard, it's just not that, people can't afford it, but it's also maybe, they don't feel like doing it, like Rana Saab said, because, so much has gone down the drain. And of course, then they don't have that opportunity to wear new clothes, to show off their accessories,
Exactly.
because if you're in a lockdown, then what's the point? But you wanted to add
Exactly.
something to that.
I think what I was doing actually in the time when, when things were really bad internationally and overall, I was reading up on what's happening in the fashion community. And what I ended up finding was that a lot of retail brands, and obviously not going to be naming those because international level where they were doing so well, they shut down stores. And I'm sure all of us are aware of it, that if somebody had like in one country, in London itself, if they had like say 17 stores or 20 stores, they went down to like 3 or 4 or 5. So coming back to where we are in Pakistan, I think I have to give it to the government here that the smart lockdown policy really worked.
It was amazing.
It worked, and
It
I have to
really
give
worked.
it to this this government itself, that whatever they did in COVID was amazing.
It's
because
amazing.
because I'm glad that you guys
Right.
agree to this,
Yeah, yeah.
because from the people who were working in
it's
our
something
workshops.
which is internationally acknowledged.
Yes, people who were working in our workshops, they all had food going back to their homes.
Right, madam, your point is noted. But coming to you, Noman, I think a very important angle which we must draw in today's conversation, since the show is about the society, is how are fashion designers like yourself giving back to the society. Now, this is a very welcome change that we see, that during the COVID, not one, in fact, quite a few designers, they came up and gave back to the society in the form of, I think, quite a few produced masks, and there were hospital donations as well.
Absolutely.
And all those amazing ration drives. So tell us about your move in this regard, because I know you've been very motivated throughout to give back to the society.
Yeah, so luckily what I've done was this, that I personally had a very big care and love and affection towards mental health as a domain itself.
Right.
And I feel that in our country it is something which is not taken very seriously. Globally, I still think that there is a big gap in understanding what mental health is and the importance of it. So I think that even because I was born abroad, raised abroad, even internationally, for us to go to the gym every day, that's commonly accepted, but going to a therapist every second day or once a week is absolutely not acceptable. And that is something which is actually very important to change, number one. Number two is this, that along COVID, just like Rana Sir very correctly pointed out, like his shopping behavior, that's a small thing, but for him who lives probably a lot more luxurious life, this is something that has affected his mental health somewhere, his happiness, his reactions.
Right.
So similarly, imagine how people were stuck in their houses, probably financially crunched as well. All of these things amalgamate into a very terrible mental health condition. So what we've done is that we actually, we have a mental health foundation. We've done an entire fashion show by the name of Voices on mental health awareness. So via our foundation, what we've done is that we gave 100 therapy sessions free of cost to people that needed a therapy session. And surprisingly, there were people who were our own clients. So if there's a client of mine, it's usually someone who's relatively in a very affluent situation. The reason why they opted for this is that probably in their own house, this was not something comfortable.
Right.
For their parents, paying for a therapy session 6,000 rupees was probably not acceptable. So they opted for
But
this.
you were open to all. That is a different story,
Yes.
that only your clients approached you, but you were open to the public person.
And we had a lot of
Okay.
low-level people
Right.
in every mechanism that did come up to us.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this is something that you've been doing before the pandemic
Yes,
as
yes,
well,
yes.
because I remember you actually dedicated one of your entire collection to
Collections,
the
yes,
cause
yes.
of mental health.
Yes, yes.
I remember attending that fashion week.
and,
Yes.
and I think most importantly is this, that it's just like both of these people are more senior to me, but whatever they voice as an opinion, it has a great impact. That's the beauty of fashion itself.
Right.
Okay, we literally are making people wear things which will go with them for a lifetime. If she's dressed up a person for their most important day of their life, or you've done that tremendously in a lot of times, you have a lot of weightage as for what you say and what you do. So I think that with mental health, not only I think everyone should have a little bit of a higher voice on it.
Right.
And the impact of it is
I
brilliant.
think more so now, because it's predicted
Yeah.
to be the next pandemic, basically. But it's really good that you were actually vigilant and you were cognizant of it at a time when these conversations weren't even that frequent to
That's a
start
huge
with.
thing. It's much
That is a
appreciated.
huge
No,
thing. And then
well
we
done.
also
Well
have
done.
seen
I
other designers. I remember Ali Zishan, he also dedicated
yeah.
one of his collections to
I think
the
it's
issue of
such
dowry.
something that everybody needs, and I think appreciate Numan on this, because I think it's something everybody needs to talk about, because he's talking about from his clientele point of view. I'll take young teen adults from point of view, and I'll talk about the younger lot that's coming up.
Right.
Like for example, boys and girls who are in their early 20s or their, and what have they seen last 3, 4, 5 years, especially the social media mainstream. And since we're talking about society issues,
Of course.
how Instagram and how all these different social media avenues have affected the younger person's mind. So I think such an important debate. And if I understand our own age group, the people who have been working very hard in all these years, we've never taken a break. And this year, in the last 2 years,
I think
really
it gave
realized-
people a break as well. It gave everybody a break
Yeah.
to
So
basically
bored
put
at
everything
home.
to
No,
put
I
everything
actually
back in order.
cherish this break, and I'll be very upfront about it. I don't think I took a break good 25 years of my life. I think I was working 365 days a year. I don't know what I was running for though.
No, but you're lucky that you had the opportunity to cherish this Hajra. So many people, you know, they lost their jobs.
But Fatma, then you also have to bring things down to, you know, down to basics as well, and understand these kind of pandemics, they bring us down to reality checks as well.
Of course. Right, madam, your point is noted. But sir, coming to you, I think we must also talk about our potential for export, especially when it comes to the items which are produced by the fashion industry per se. So how do you feel can the system be made more enabling in order to do that? Because this is something which could really add to our foreign exchange.
Right now, with the current the lawn that we do, and now the ready-to-wear lines, which most of the textile designers, textile industries, and the designers have collaborated and are doing. So a lot has started happening already.
Right.
But still, I feel we, the fashion designers, are not educated in this whole matter. There's so much that we need to learn. There's so much that we need to channelize.
Right.
And we don't know about. And designers, being not great businessmen, I would say, end up having such issues. So once the companies get bigger and they're better, and such, you know, your LCCI, your chambers are there, they can help you with exports. There's so much we can learn from there. And I've recently been made the co-convener of the Fashion and Textile Committee of Lahore, LCCI.
Right.
And that's what our next goal is to start educating the designers in order to come forward and channelize their businesses and start doing exports properly. Because whatever we're doing right now, whatever order we have, let's say, we end up sending it through some courier service.
Right.
Whereas it can just go as a private or as a personal gift.
Right.
But that needs to change now. We need to start showing proper export.
Right.
And once that happens, the numbers end up adding to to the economy of the country.
Of course.
And that really works, because
I think the system needs to be more conducive to this. We need to remove all the barriers which actually hamper that, basically.
And make things easy for the designers as well, and educate them. Because the industry is already doing it. Let's say the textile industry is already doing it. Or your other industries of, be it automobiles or whatever. But we also need to be educated now.
Right, sir, your point is noted. But coming to you, madam, do you feel that, when we talk about the points that sir has raised, do you feel that we also need to work on the management and appointment of our fashion councils per se? Are they a true representative of the Pakistani society?
From the angle that I'm looking at right now and the conversation we are having, I think there was a time, good 10 years back, when the throttle and the excitement and the there was a lot of potential that one could see of where the textile councils or the fashion councils, how they were collaborating and they were running in one direction.
Right.
I think somewhere down there something again it's a cultural thing. We lose track, we lose sight. As a nation, we do this all the time. We lose sight, and sometimes what ends up happening is that then there is this the situation does go haywire, and then we're back to just catering to the inner community rather than the international community. But on the other side, a lot of business has been going on in export, and it's a personal effort on the textile front, and a lot of other young people who have come up, and they've come up with this idea. Also, e-commerce has picked up.
Right.
Last 5, 6, 7 years, I would say it's become more. Once again, Pakistan is new to this, but overall, I think because of the websites and the e-commerce and online businesses, I think we should call that export as well, because we do end up even sending couture as export and textile as export. But as you said, I think formalized effort is definitely going.
I think that is exactly why I raised this question, be it in terms of the export schemes we have, be it in terms of regulation of your industry. Those need to kick in, because until unless you have the infrastructure, no matter how much anybody is educated, although of course we need that education, I don't deny that fact.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
To your question that how the councils have worked and everything. But in the past 10 years, we must not forget that the business of fashion has really, really evolved.
100%.
and also the collaborations of the designers with the textiles have happened.
Right.
In the form of lawn,
Yes,
khadar,
absolutely.
chiffon, and that is happening.
And the
but
formalized
that's
fashion
also,
shows.
yeah.
It's a huge
so,
thing, yeah.
I would say it's worked.
I would say
you know,
it's a
that
great
whole
beginning.
thing,
I
it's a
would
great
say
beginning.
It's a great
And
beginning.
we have come
and
forward.
We need to continue sort of, working on it.
Because
Probably.
of the fashion councils, the
Yeah.
designers end up getting a lot of recognition. I think the best point of, let's forget international, we got a lot of recognition within the country.
Yes,
Within
yes,
the
for
country.
Sure,
Within
for
the
sure.
country.
It's
We've
more
bloomed.
it's more
Exactly.
central
We've
right
all
now.
bloomed
Yes.
together.
Yeah, I was coming in from was that like since it's been 10 years around, I think we're still exactly at that exciting moment that we had begun. This whole process begun really big.
Right, madam, your point is noted, but I think until unless we have the proper infrastructure in place, we can't actually proceed forward. To which, Noman, I would come to you. Would you want to add something to that?
So I think both of them are right in their own places, but also I do feel like with one regard, we designers have also become a lot more commercial in our own selves as well.
Right.
Like with regards to how we've placed ourselves. I mean, but before we would find a vast majority being located in small houses and in the back end. But today, if you come on main streets like MM Alam, you will see a good number of designers on the forefront with their retail stores. That in itself does show a lot of evolution with
Yeah.
regards
Yeah,
to business
absolutely.
frontier, with regards to commercialization, with regards to retailing it in a better perception to say. And secondly, I do feel like people have actually conveyed and understood, either whether it's through agencies or through different mechanisms, we have developed our brands and our companies to a more grandeur and a more rightful mechanism. So that means that how we translate ourselves today with the infrastructure that is existent, not only to say with regards to some particular organization, just with the way that the structure of the world has become today, with regards to social media or all of these different mechanisms, we're able to convey a lot more of a stronger message, which does have a global outreach.
Of course.
I mean, but I'm sure any one of us three sitting over here, we do have a social media page that has people who are sitting all over the world observing us. That in itself is a great thing that we did not have.
So
10 years.
basically,
We are
it is
just
an amalgamation
a
of so
button
many
away,
things:
just a
fashion,
click away
education,
now.
infrastructure,
absolutely.
social media, everything going together. So coming towards you and coming towards the conclusion of the show, I think a very important narrative which we must not skip is the fact that we need to make the fashion industry more inclusive and more diverse. How precisely do you feel can we do that in Pakistan, and what role can designers like yourself play in doing just that?
So I am somebody who's a traditionalist, and I feel like we talked earlier that how we are a lost station, identity-wise. So with my work, my line and my inspiration has always been what our forefathers and what the generations before them have been doing.
Right, sir.
And if you do justice to your style, if you do it being true to your your distinct style, which is your mine is traditional. I think we all need to start doing that, and start having a little impact within whatever we're designing, and in that way we can really make a difference.
Right, sir, your point is noted. But coming to you, madam, I think we must also talk about the fact that, when we talk about fashion, I think the need of the hour is to make it more eco-friendly and to also make it more sustainable. So how can we work towards that? Because we do see this emerging as a global trend now.
Well, I think in any industry, once your basic situations are covered, the industry grows to a higher level. So as the initial discussion was, let's just go pre-COVID, and let's just think about life at that time, so that we have more sensibility of what exact question you just asked. So pre-COVID, we were all exactly at a place where things were moving in a direction, but we were not evolving with that speed of an international level, and your ground level hiccups were still there. And I'm talking about, at this point, there should already be, let me just put this correctly, a Faisalabad Fashion Week. There should already be a Karachi Fashion Week. There should already be a Hyderabad Fashion Week. There should already be a Lahore Fashion Week. This should be more Peshawar Fashion Week. This should become like, if you look at your neighboring countries and other countries, and I'm coming from that aspect.
So by that angle, it should be more inclusive.
So
Something
what
which
happens,
I was putting
exactly,
to Sir
so
earlier.
I'm just coming to that point, that when it becomes, the industry becomes to that, you know, your ground level hiccups are going away, and you're growing, and then can you take care of certain things, like, you know, coming up with that as you said, you know,
to make it more sustainable,
sustainable, eco-friendly, also more environmental
yes.
friendly, and taking social issues into fashion.
And then you must not forget that there are a lot of designers who end up forming their businesses into the, let's say, Lahore, Karachi, or Islamabad.
Well, I hope and pray we grow bigger than
they
this.
have done very well.
I think they are both sides of the argument.
Yeah.
And also, having said that, from, you know, what I see, I think over a period of time, just as we have seen a lot of fashion designers taking up social causes, dedicating their collections to it, which includes Noman as well. I think we've also seen them working at this angle too. Quite a few things we now see, you know, even designers for that matter. I recently bought this thing from a brand without taking any names, and they were selling their stuff in a plastic bag, which you could easily basically rip off, and you could sow the seeds, and you could actually grow a plant. So I think it's these little things which actually make a difference. That you don't need to do something.
It's a very
big.
retail brand ideology. You know, you can actually.
It's something very intelligent, something which actually appeals to the consumer too. To which I'll come to you, and coming towards the conclusion of the show, what would your concluding comment be, since you are the youngest fashion designer on the show today? How do you feel can, you know, fashion and society go together? How do you feel can fashion be used as that one communication tool to actually reach out to people?
The best mechanism itself is how we as designers also evolve for the next generation to come. So I think that when I came in initially, I remember talking to Rana Sab, I was like, he has mentored a lot of people, and he was big enough to say, people have become who they are with their own efforts. But that's something also with regards to what I believe is that, so when I was speaking about IFM, the whole education system in my degree was all evolved not out of books alone. It was evolved out of people like us. We had all of the top of the line brands, top people come in, someone who's from their production head, who would come into us and actually teach us how things are done. So what I think is that what we should do for the fashion industry to truly evolve is people who have had real experiences to give back to the society, to our next generation, and teach them out. There's a lot of things in society that do happen that maybe not the best forms of any society all around the world. But our acceptance towards these things, which do end up being natural phenomena, we should be a lot more open to that. And I think that when we're doing collections, or we're doing a shoot, or we're doing a fashion show, there's a lot of messages that we can create about it. So that's the second thing which I feel that we should always do. That is not only to do with our business or selling more, it should also be to do with society itself.
Society itself too, and I think it also adds a very interesting and new, unique dimension to the designer's collection per se. Because if I was to look at it personally, I would go for somebody who's more socially motivated, who cares about the society rather than going for somebody who's just commercially motivated. On which note, I would like to conclude today's show. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, madam. And thank you so much, Noman, for being here with us today. Well, to conclude today's show, we generally spoke about the evolving fashion trends as they do stand in the Pakistani fashion industry today. Having said that, there is no denying to the fact that fashion per se is a very effective mechanism in which we can express ourselves and communicate too. So we must put this to the best of use. Having said that, it is also the need of the hour that we aim to make fashion more sustainable, more, environmental friendly, and of course more diverse and inclusive too. On that note, signing off for today. Until next time, take care and Allah Hafiz.